Hello and welcome to the Jazz Violin Podcast. I'm Matt Holborn and this is episode 1 with Tcha Limberger. The reason I decided to put this podcast together is, number 1, I really like listening to podcasts, and number 2, I wanted to hear some more interviews with my favourite violinists. So I thought I would just make it happen myself. Okay, first guest is Tcha Limberger. Tcha is a Belgian-born musician. He is half Gypsy and he lives in Brussels. He's a purveyor of many different styles of folk, Romani and improvised music styles. He's studied extensively the Magyar Nota style of Hungarian music, plus the music of Transylvania, Romania, Greece, as well as jazz and the music of Django Reinhardt. He speaks lots and lots of languages, too many to count. He's an excellent teacher and he also happens to be blind. I think we should get on with it. Let's do it. I'd be quite interested to hear how you started playing jazz violin, but just tell me your story. Really.
Well, I'll try and be quick because there's a big chunk before I started playing violin.
I don't think you have to be quick.
Okay. As a kid, really kid, like just about not being baby anymore, I wanted to sing flamenco. That was my first musical. The ritual that I remember when my mom had to put me to bed when I was 2 was she would put on a vinyl record of flamenco music.
Right.
And I would listen to that and then I would go to sleep. That was the evening ritual thing.
Yeah.
And I think I was about 5.5, 6 when I got my first tape recorder.
Right.
In order to be able to listen to a couple of cassettes with flamenco, which I was dying to hear all the time.
This is when you were 5?
Yeah, that was when I was 5. And I was 6. I was 5 when I did my first appearance on stage, singing with a flamenco guitar player. That doesn't really matter anyway, but I mean, it's just, I was 6 and something when Koen de Kouter, who is a colleague of my father's, and well, of mine, of us, very good musician, of whom I learned a lot. Well, he taught me my first 2 chords on guitar. Yeah. And my father taught me the 2 second ones. And that's how I got started playing guitar first. And then my father came home one day with an instrument from Africa that he just kind of bought at some collectors, somebody who collected instruments. And I got so intrigued by the simplicity of how it was made and the sound of it, and that I decided I would want to collect instruments from all over the world. And so people started bringing back little flutes and drums and string instruments and thingies and bits and pieces and tapes. Yeah. I really loved listening to music that was, well, for my ears, exotic, or how to say, music that sounded authentic. Yeah. And that has not changed. My preferred records are always field recordings. Yeah. I'm not interested in studio stuff. Yeah. I'm interested in, you put a mic down somewhere in a field, in a room, in a house, in a, I don't know, and you record what's happening. Yeah. And if that's acoustic music, that has always been my interest. But whether it was Indian or African or South American, as long as it was authentic, as long as I couldn't hear Western influence in it, I was fine. And I played a lot of Quechua music, Quechua and Aymara music from Bolivia and Peru and Ecuador. Also, again, mostly the one without charangos and guitars and mandolins and violins and all that and harps, but the ones with only flutes and drums that are tuned in weird ways and that for our ears sound out of tune. Yeah. But for them, it's just that's how it is and how it should be. And I loved that stuff and I loved playing it, and I found some musicians with whom to play it, which was a miracle. Because I was still doing this flamenco thing, and I started to learn that I should actually not try to copy it, but actually really learn it. Because I was doing little performances and concerts, like from, I think, 9 or 10, with my guitar and singing, and people loved them because you see this very enthusiastic, passionate boy doing some incredible singing, and people just loved it. But I mean, it was only a copy. It was a make like. It was a something like that tried to be flamenco. But I mean, I started meeting some Spanish people, and also I didn't speak Spanish, so I was just kind of blabbing. And when I was 12, I actually really decided, okay, I have to go to Spain and really learn the thing properly, or I have to stop. I cannot continue pretending, because I'll become older, and people just, the thing that they kick on is that you're a kid and that you're doing that thing. But it's not. And I was already reproaching Manitas de Platas for not being true to flamenco. So I just said, well, I cannot say that off somebody's and then do the thing myself. So I stopped flamenco. I really, quite brutally. And I by then I had been also playing in a very amateur New Orleans band, banjo. And that's how I met a clarinet from close by. And I asked him if I could look at it and try it, and I got very intrigued by the reed, by the mouthpiece, the reed and the sound, and that's how I then Fapy Lafertin, kind of uncle of mine, gave me an old clarinet, and I started practicing, and I found I went to the piano and blew the note that you can blow without pushing any keys, and that's an F in my opinion. So it was a big shock when a couple of months later I found out that clarinetists would call that a G, which is totally ridiculous. Anyway, that's how it works. And so for me that was an F, and still is an F. And and anyway, so I started learning clarinet, and Koen de Kooter again taught me quite some stuff and made me listen to Barney Bigard and George Lewis and Johnny Dotts, and of course I started listening more and more to Django Reinhardt as well, and swapped my flamenco guitar for a Django Reinhardt type guitar. I purposefully don't say gypsy jazz guitar, but we'll come to that later, I think. Guitar, clarinet, and then that was also the time when I was 12 that I got this full track cassette thing that basically constituted more than half of my schooling, because I would play guitar and I would play another guitar and a double bass and a clarinet and find the best order to do it. And I decided that first the rhythm guitar, then the bass, and then the solo guitar, and then the clarinet would be the order.
So this is you recording yourself? So on a 4-track?
Overdubbing, and singing and playing clarinets and more guitars and trying to make it work, and trying to find out why this swings and why this doesn't, and why I make a mistake, so I have to do it again, and concentration, and finding out all about soloing and how to make it interesting, and then of course, I mean, for a long time I've said to people that I'm an autodidact, but actually I really think it's more correct to say that I am an autodidact who learned from everyone who passed by and wanted to teach me something, which was, luckily enough, many people. But to make the summary kind of fast, the main 3 guys, or well, should I say, it's hard to say, but I would say Dick van der Harst is bandoneon, guitar, Scottish bagpipe, another player who is also a composer. He taught me a lot about music, about contemporary music, about contemporary classical music, I mean. So how to interpret, how to listen to atonal music, how to listen to Django in his later period, why it is so great, and blah, blah, blah. He taught me a lot about tone on guitar as well. He was the first one to show me how to play with a thick guitar pick. And I still hold with that. I think it's really important. Tone is the most important thing in anything you do. Whatever it is. If you don't have a good tone, then whatever solo you will play, even if it's with the most inventive and incredible phrases, it will just be ugly.
Yeah.
So without tone, nothing is there. So anyway, that was Koen de Kouter showed me about the same things, other angles, but about the same themes.
Yeah.
Also, he's a saxophone player and a guitar player as well. So there was a lot to learn from him.
Sure.
And also about how you should be more interested in tone and not in technique.
Okay.
Although technique and tone go together, but I mean, why tone should have the priority over speed.
Okay.
And then there was Herman Schamp, who showed me a lot about playing, listening to classical music, for example, is something that I can thank to him. I can thank to him learning how to deal with dynamics much more than I would naturally have done. Playing softly, not always loud.
Yeah.
Sometimes loud. And incidentally, I just found this quote of a New Orleans trumpet player who said, "If you want them to hear you, play loud. If you want them to listen to you, play soft." Which is a very nice thing to say, and I think it's very correct. But also my uncle Tcha Limberger, who was a trumpet player mainly and guitar player, he didn't have any schooling and he didn't have any academic knowledge whatsoever. He had no idea. He was an totally instinctive musician, but with such an incredible talent that actually even without me noticing it, he inspired me enormously. The courage with which he would attack a piece, like a solo, like, okay, we're going to play Les Yeux Noirs, Dark Eyes, whatever you want to call it, Kaliaka, and he would play it in A minor, and he would always do a little introduction on trumpet, kind of vaguely Hungarian-ish kind of thingy. And he would sometimes, when he was in a good mood, goodness me, he would it's like he meant to make the whole building collapse. Yeah. With shooting notes and rolling licks and beautiful tone and fantastic guy. And he also played with two trumpets, which might have given me this idea, together with Magic Malik, about playing and singing together. Trying to do solos where you alternate singing and playing. So that is all before I was 17. Now when I was 15, 16, I discovered recordings of Toki Horvat, who is a Hungarian violin player with the most incredible tone that you've ever heard, at least I. Tone and timing, tone and authority.
Yeah.
Authority is what he has. He does and it's the whole band is on his bow tip, hanging, and they follow every dynamic move, every chord change. It's authority, full blast, but beautiful one. It's not dominate. Well, it is dominating, but it's not. There's no aggression there. Yeah. It's just, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Yeah. And there you are, and beautiful sound. So I heard that, and that impressed me. Still, I mean, I can still listen to the same recordings every day and just be totally blown away. There was Stadelweiss, who is a gypsy violin player whose playing I still love, although it is very I remember once a jazz saxophone player, and I was playing him these violin solos of Stadelweiss, and he was like, "What do you see in it?" I said, "Well, man, it's just beautiful. Yeah, it's so simple and beautiful." And he just like how does that tune go again? Well, his vibrato, for example, because once a classical player, when I showed her Stadelweiss, she said, "Yeah, but your vibrato is much better." And so, well, it might be, but it's what he does is beautiful, and it's like I'm just gonna imitate a bit.
that's sort of in the middle of vibrato and trill, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's how many Manouche did the thing, and also old Hungarian violin playing is a lot like that. This was not a very good imitation. Maybe I'm gonna. Wait, let me. No, what is that tune? Let me just remember it.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Okay. No. Sorry, yeah.
That's all right.
That's Stadel's playing. And then he does like things in.
Sounds lovely, man.
It's very sweet
Yeah.
and simple, but it's beautiful, and you can sing his solos, and they're always well constructed.
I've never heard this guy.
No, it's not very well known because he was the kind of gypsy violin player who only played for actually religious purposes. So he was not really playing in public.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's a couple of tapes that are, by the way, disgustingly recorded and with synthesizer and nonsense in the background. It's hard. You have a hard time listening to him because of the recordings, but his playing is actually really beautiful.
Yeah, that does happen a lot.
And I was young enough to cope with that, with this nonsense, and just listen, drink in his beautiful playing. And I also found a tape of my own grandfather, of whom I had heard the most amazing stories about his music, about his being, about his charismatic human appearance, and how people loved him, and how he loved people, and how he and all that. And so that, and one stay in Gerwe where I noticed like everybody was in this gypsy camp in Holland somewhere, where all Manouche and Sinti live, my nephews, cousins, and uncles and aunts, like the Rosenberg family, Stochelo and Moses and Joshua and Falco, Sani, Jimmy, all the guys.
Yeah.
And it's like a factory of guitarists.
Yeah.
Guitar. So everybody's playing guitar, and I thought, where's the violin, man?
Yeah.
And that's the moment when I thought, okay, I have to at least learn to play a bit like Stadl or something like that. Just a little simple melody, and I had heard of a lot of Hungarian gypsy violinists who would say, at 12, yes, you can start, maybe you can still start double Bs, but violin, that's too late.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm 17, I will never be able to play this instrument seriously. So I'll just kind of give it a try and see where I get to. And then when I was 19, I went play a concert in Budapest with Manouche songs. So no pretending Hungarian blah blah blah, just the songs that Manouche have made in their own language. And I played with this very slow vibrato. I played something like that. That was
very sort of wide.
Yeah, that's
wide
the Manouche style, old
Yeah.
style. My grandfather also played a bit like that, and Stadl as well, and yeah, I had been listening to this Hungarian music a lot, this Magyar Nota thing.
Yeah.
And we heard some concerts in restaurants, some gypsy bands playing,
Yeah.
and we heard actually one of the best ones ever in that, at least in that epoch, in that period of time. Járó Kasanyi, Bufó Sándor, Ürmös Sándor, Molnár Laci, and then the old Boros, who was playing in another restaurant. And I just thought, my goodness, this is what I have to learn. Because if I learn this, my violin technique will become so much better.
Yeah.
And it's also music that Sinti, that Manouche love.
Sure.
So it kind of felt like something that had to do with my family, and also that would help me, because I was also very drawn to Romanian music, Taraf de Hajduk and all that stuff. And,
Okay.
And Flora Truck and Donna Dimitru, and I mean many players, and I was quite good at finding out how it worked. But I just thought that style is not going to help me develop my technique.
Sure.
And I was not drawn enough to classical music.
Sure.
I think I was 20 when I started. No, that's not even true. I was 19, I think, when I started also trying to learn some Bach pieces. Also, again, on my own, just listening to the tape and trying to play the G minor Adagio.
Oh, yeah.
And then later on the Presto.
Yeah.
And many years later, I've done the Fugue as well.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah, the Fugue's hard.
It's fantastic. It's beautiful
It's
music.
lovely.
Yeah, I can't really play it, of course, but I know how it works.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't have the mentality of a classical musician.
Yeah.
The kind of discipline and routine in order to be able to perform this music, but I can really enjoy working on it at home a lot. Now, anyway, so by the time I was 21, I started thinking maybe I have to quit clarinet because it's taking up a lot of time, and I actually want to play violin.
Okay.
And that felt like a balancing moment in my life, like a big risk. Because actually, I was actually starting to play the clarinet well, finally. Like really well, maybe even.
Yeah.
And I think if I would have gone on, it would have been, good. But, and then I said, so will I take this risk of quitting this instrument that I finally start to know, to start learning an instrument that I maybe will never be able to apprivoiser in French. How would you say that? Well, yeah, to get down. How to manage, to cope with. That will I ever be really a violinist, actually? And indeed, for long years, I said I'm a guitarist who plays a bit of violin.
Right. Okay.
Because I felt that was the most correct way of saying it.
Yeah.
And then I went to Budapest, did a lot of studying, practicing 6 hours a day for a year and a half, and that was very good. That helped a lot because I had a very good teacher, Horváth Béla, was Hungarian, the grandson of a very good gypsy primas. And his father was a clarinet player, or is a clarinet, but he is actually now in New York, working with Zuckerman Juilliard School, teaching. Okay. I mean, he's top of the bill.
Yeah, right.
And he was 17 when he was teaching me. I was 23.
He was 17 when he was teaching you?
Yes. He was then already amazing.
Sure.
I mean, and he just only got better. But thanks to him, I learned a lot about some technique, about scales, about arpeggios, about bow, about everything that has to do with violin, and a lot about Magyar Nota, this Hungarian style that I went to learn to study. And ever since I've been playing violin, still trying to get it better. I have a very good friend, Liana Gurja, who's a classical violin player, of whom I'm still learning a lot today, just by seeing her teach or by hearing her practice, or by playing together with her. She is this kind of. She was 4 when she started playing the violin. She cannot even remember the first moment when she took the instrument in her hand. So it's like, and she's Russian, so she has this Russian Georgian, so she has this incredible Russian school until she was 17, then went to America and had very good schooling there as well, and is still 35, is still improving her playing with huge steps. I've known her now since 4 years, and 4 years, and I mean I can still see it going only better and better. So it's fantastic to see that you can actually still improve. So fantastic, thank you. And so I think that's a bit the whole story, the main points of it, like how I started.
So that's how you got into playing the violin.
Yes,
I guess.
Yeah,
would be interesting to hear how you how, if you remember, like when you first started trying to play jazz on the violin.
I think
like really, try working on improvising and sort of, I guess really, I mean, I imagine you sort of started with that in a way. That's what you said, you're playing some form of jazz. Yeah,
well, I think in a way, for me, playing an instrument has nothing to do with the music that you're going to play.
Sure.
I was interested in Django and jazz, so obviously I would also play that on violin.
Yeah.
And I didn't think, I had already learned how to play, I had already learned quite a lot about how to solo on guitar and clarinet.
Right, yeah.
So I was not thinking about violin as something separate.
Yeah.
In that way. So I think I started playing jazz on the violin straight away.
Okay, yeah.
I remember one concert where I had been playing clarinet and guitar, and at a certain point I thought, shall I dare take out this violin?
Yeah.
And I did, and I played something like with my wide vibrato, and that's how I played.
Yeah.
And then I somehow find myself somewhere, and I only had my violin, didn't have a guitar, didn't have a clarinet, and they're playing, well, I'll join. And just didn't think about it as a separate thing, like jazz on violin.
Right,
it was just violin playing, which was the main goal. Yeah. And I wanted to play anything that I liked, so Hungarian, Romanian jazz.
Yeah.
Now it's Greek these days. Yeah. So Bulgarian, that's all. And I've always tried to work up to a certain, or down to a certain depth. I don't like to copy or just kind of vaguely do something that is alike something. And jazz, I think my main optic way of seeing it is that you just have to listen and know exactly what you're listening to and why you're listening to that.
Yeah.
And the main reason why should of course be that you just passionately love it.
Yeah.
And the second, because you can learn something of it.
Yeah.
No point in listening to something of which you don't learn anything.
Yeah,
and on the other hand, you can always keep on learning, even by listening to the same recordings.
Yeah.
Because there's things that you would understand now that you didn't understand 10 years ago. For some reason, don't ask me why, but that's just the case. Something suddenly grabs you. Oh, that's what he's doing.
Yeah,
of course. Take my instruments, check it. But of course, that understanding is also there because you have been listening to it for 20 years.
Yeah, of course.
And suddenly your brain processed something that you just, you take your instrument and you do it.
Yeah.
Where you couldn't do it yesterday. Don't ask me how that really works, but it works.
Yeah.
I know it's the same with languages. I speak now, I think, kind of 9 or 10 languages. Depends on what you really call speaking.
Yeah.
I have a notion definitely of 10 languages.
Okay.
And Greek is one of the last ones.
Yeah.
And one of my methods is I just put on there's some language courses on CD, and just so people reading some texts and some exercises and blah blah blah, and I would just put that on when I go to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's kind of monotonous, so in a couple of 15-20 minutes I'm asleep.
Sure.
But I'm sure it works.
Yeah.
It helps me learning this language. Because you wake up and sometimes it's still playing. Oh yeah, that's what he's saying. Yesterday I didn't understand it and now I do. There's no logic to it, but it is.
Yeah. And there's quite a lot of logic to it.
Yeah, but
if
I mean,
you're hearing something lot regularly, then
and listening to it is really, and also I mean it doesn't have to be violin. Listen to Django Reinhardt's playing. Listen to Louis Armstrong. When I hear Django in the 30s, his solos straight remind me of Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
Full on. I mean, even listen to Bechet and I can hear a violin.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. I
mean, it's just. And then of course there's not only Grappelli, there is Stav Smith to listen to, there is Joe Venuti, there's Eddie South, whom I really like. Unfortunately there's not many recordings where you can hear him play full out.
Sure.
And actually the only ones where you really can listen to him is with Django Reinhardt.
Yeah.
There's a blues that he plays. He plays
it's just called Eddie South's Blues.
Exactly. In D major. They do Somebody Loves Me, an incredible version. Yeah. From G to G to G sharp to C back to G. They do I Can't Believe You're in Love with Me.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic tune as well. And I mean his playing is beautiful and it's like classical. It's very classy. By the way, it's actually for me very clear that that's downwards straight Grappelli's inspiration.
Yeah, totally.
So you can really hear it. It's not difficult. I mean, it's even sometimes it takes a bit of time. Is this now Eddie or is it Grappelli? Because there's a couple of recordings where they play together. Yeah. And it's only the sound that betrays Grappelli, because Grappelli's sound is a bit more edgy. Yeah. It's less warm. Yeah. Eddie's sound is actually better. By the way. Right. Then still. Yeah. In my opinion, I mean, it's more focused tone than Grappelli's. Grappelli, of course, has an interesting career because he started his playing. How he started in the beginning is so different from what he did in the end, and I actually like most of his playing. Less the 30s for me. For me, it starts being interesting. When he is in England, and then after that when he comes back to France and does the last couple of recordings with Django, where the masterpieces are in Rome 1949. That's when you can, I mean, Grappelli has never been as free in his soloing as those sessions, because afterwards he starts having a couple of a large vocabulary of phrases that he just repeats. Yeah, totally. But beautifully, and there is a couple of moments in his life still where you notice a sudden push, where you notice that he actually really practiced.
I know what you're saying.
There's like à Paris, jazz in Paris or something like that, and you can really hear that there he has been practicing for 6 months for hours a day. Yeah. And suddenly his playing is so crisp and fast and clear. It's incredible.
I'm sure he used to say that he didn't practice so as well.
Yeah,
I've heard him. I'm sure I've heard.
Yeah, well, John Etheridge used to tell this story where because John Etheridge is this British guitar player who played with Grappelli and Manouche. Yeah. And he would ask Grappelli, like, when do you ever practice? And Grappelli would answer, oh, practice. Oh no, I have to take the violin out of the case and all that. So like, and I'm quite sure that there were long periods where indeed he did not practice.
He must have practiced.
But he has practiced.
He just has.
In other periods. Yeah. And I mean, if you're touring like he was playing every day. Yeah. Now, I am the kind of guy who, if I'm playing every day and I'm not practicing, at a certain point it goes downhill.
Totally. Yeah.
So there's this moment where you go up,
yeah,
because you're playing every day and there's inspiration and there is this and that, and then suddenly for some reason it goes down.
Yeah.
And that's because the precision you kind of lose the focused attention.
Totally.
Because you're just on stage and you have to make sure it all works, so you just kind of do whatever you can to make it work.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you practice, you can again reset how am I actually, where's my bow here? Yeah. And according to the string and the bridge and sound, and focus on the vibrato and focus just on double stops and make slow bowing, and that's all. So I need that.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that if, like, Grappelli had quite some classical schooling as well.
Yeah. And
from early onwards, I guess.
He played piano as well. He played jazz piano. I think that's going to have helped him. Probably in the same way that, you're a guitar player. Yeah. That way of learning it, which is not the way that a lot of people, violinists, learn, I guess. Now.
Unluckily enough for them.
Yeah, totally.
But I mean, guitar, I'm sure that it helped me because, two things. Guitar helped me, and also the braccio, the viola playing that I was listening to all the time in Eastern European music, where it is a very normal thing for a violin to accompany something. Or a braccio. I mean, be it a braccio, a viola or a violin, doesn't matter. And you just I remember when I was 18, I would go busking in Bruges, where I was born, and normally I would go with my guitar and sing and maybe clarinet and play some stuff. But suddenly I thought, I could actually just practice violin and busk. And then suddenly came this moment, I would like to sing a song. Hey, wait, can I do this?
Yeah.
Can I actually... diminished, how do I do this? And I noticed that it's not nice if I do it's nicer if I do so if I don't double the notes that I'm singing. And that's just how I started learning the whole thing.
Right, okay.
Because it was just a necessity. And also a normal thing on the other hand, like, okay, I want to sing, I want to accompany myself. Well, they do that all the time in Eastern European music. Why would I not do it in jazz? It's the same thing. It's just chords, and you have two notes, and you can suggest a lot of things with those two notes. Which, like if I play, it can be G major 7. It can be E minor 9. It can be A 13. And so on and so forth. And that's just the magic of it.
Just for anyone who can't work that out, he's playing a G and an F sharp there.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
So that's I think that's really that's it.
Was there any sort of difficulty in moving the stuff that you played already on guitar onto the violin?
I never really thought about that, I think.
Right.
It's not a long time ago that I suddenly realized that there's a lick that I often like to play on guitar, which is a Django Reinhardt lick. And it's hard to translate it to violin. It just doesn't really work. I mean, it works, but in some tonalities, and that's it. There is it's very out of tune because I haven't played today and I haven't practiced that lick, but
sounds good.
It's hard to translate those things in all tonalities because it's not the same. The instrument doesn't respond to the same kind of easiness of just kind of shoving the whole hand a bit more to that side or that side. That
is actually one of the things that I find is hard about translating other things onto the violin, or anything onto the violin, any jazz onto the violin, that some things you're like, well, that's just not going to work in this other key. It might work if I really try, but I can never see myself playing that without like fluently and wanting to just it coming out because it's so alien.
Well, what I think about that is that if you can find a key in which it works, and you start doing that at least, then after a couple of years, it might happen that you find a way of doing that in another, because your ear is so used to hearing that lick.
That's true.
That it will dictate. It will just dominate your fingers, and it will put them in the right place.
Yeah.
As violin has this weird thing a bit, where it's a question I've been asking a lot of classical singers, who are, of course, masters about technique in voice and how do you sing. I have no idea how I sing. I sing a lot, but I have no idea how it works. Now, I was saying to these violin players, like, imagine that I'm just standing here. Well, I'm just standing here, and I imagine this note, and I want to sing it, and I go, oh.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
What muscles do I move? Because you don't feel those muscles in your throat.
Yeah.
You have no idea. And, well, they don't really have an answer to it.
Yeah.
They say it's your ear.
Yeah.
So, which is, again, for me, the proof as well that, like guitarists, so many guitarists, the students come to my place, and if I would see them, I would tell them, don't look at your guitar.
Yeah.
Don't look at your neck.
Yeah.
Violinists, we cannot.
Yeah.
Don't. It's not helping you.
Yeah.
It's a detour of music, because it's another process still that has to happen before you can actually hear just listen and feel. There's your hand, and it feels the frets and the strings, and this. So it's just the same thing that we have to do on violin.
Yeah. You never look like I could never learn by looking at someone's hand on a violin.
Of course not.
It doesn't make any sense. Like I just couldn't, because I don't know.
It feels kind of a random. It's here or there. Or
you could be doing anything.
Yeah, it's a millimeter difference. You can't. I guess there's differences you couldn't even see.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have no idea because I can't see, so it's easier for me to say that as well.
Yeah.
Like, don't look. Oh yeah, of course.
What are the main struggles that you find that people who come to you for lessons have, like violinists who are learning, who try to learn jazz? I imagine a lot of violinists who come to you are coming from a classical background most of the time. What are the main things that you find that people struggle with?
I think that keeps coming back, but that's, again, it doesn't have anything to do with violin. It's the same for guitar or any soloing. Yeah. When you learn it, is that people have to learn to have a what do you say that in English? They have to learn how to play phrases from this is the beginning of my phrase and this is the ending of my phrase. Yeah. And now I'm not playing anything. Yeah. Because I've just said what I have to say, comma. I'm continuing now, comma. Yeah. And now actually I'm finishing my phrase, dot. Yeah. And that's the thing that people really struggle with, because they want to prove to themselves that they know in which chord they are, that they know where they are in the piece, and they kind of flutter over notes to somewhere, and they actually don't really know where they yet are going. Oh yeah, that's it, and then that's what it sounds like as well. It's kind of what? Yeah. So what I have to tell people is, a kid, a baby, when he learns to speak, it will learn like one word. It will learn at a certain point. It will learn, because my son, for example, he was ecstatic when there was yogurt. Yogurt in Hungarian, yogurt. Yeah. So his version of the word yogurt was okok. he was all okok, okok. But it meant a lot of things. It meant, I want yogurt. Yeah. Oh my goodness, there's yogurt. How fantastic. It meant all those things. Yeah. So it's one word, and then suddenly there will be another word, and there will be a little phrase.
Yeah.
And there will be another little phrase, but they're short.
Yeah.
Simple, correct,
yeah,
clear phrases. And that's what we have to, that's actually, when I listen to myself, when I was playing, when I was 15, 16, guitar solos, the good ones were when I was playing short phrases.
Yeah.
Blidip, blidodidodidop,
Totally.
repeat,
Yeah.
that's the good ones, because they are clear. I don't get mixed up somewhere and put a finger in the wrong place and go, you know.
Yeah.
It's clear and it's simple, but it's effective.
Yeah.
And people can understand what is happening and why it is happening, and I can make a little joke even, because I can kind of put that note just one half step up. Nobody would expect that it would be that one, and then you know, and that's, and so short phrases is definitely something that I keep having to hammer on and stop playing.
Yeah.
The band is playing on. You don't have to continuously just listen to the band. They're playing. It's fine. Music is going on, even if you don't play one nice note. But sometimes, and that's very typical maybe for violinists, I also have to tell them, come on, stop your bow. Don't go like,
yeah, sure.
It's
yeah.
Listen to trumpets then. Do something.
Yeah.
Percussion. An interesting thing Liana just told me was that I think it was Janos Starker, a cello player, who said, we also have to play with consonants and not only with vowels. And that's a very nice way to put it. Because there's and there's and there's and there's and all those things, and it's not only so that's also an important thing. And you have to in jazz you can allow yourself to do what you couldn't do in classical, because people would look at you, what is he, unless it were contemporary music. But jazz is contemporary music, so you can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's effective.
Totally.
And then you can suddenly go, and that contrast is fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I have to. Of course, violinists often have problems anyway with remembering the chords.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. That is a thing. And
for me, I mean, well, that doesn't matter what instrument I'm teaching, and here I am again. For me, it is actually there's no. For me, it's not important which instrument you play.
Yeah.
But you want to know the chords.
Sure.
So you will practice the chords.
Yeah.
You will learn how to accompany another player.
Yeah.
Because if you're not able to accompany another player, in my opinion, you're but half a musician.
Sure.
Even if you can play the best solo in the world, if you cannot accompany your colleague, well, how boring is that?
Yeah.
For your colleague.
Yeah.
And actually, even for you, you can't share. You can't just when you can accompany, you can kind of lean back and listen to the other one doing some stuff.
Yeah.
And get inspired.
Yeah.
And also, how on earth are you learning the tunes if you cannot accompany actually?
Yeah.
So for me, it's incredibly important to learn to accompany. And first, you would learn one version of an accompaniment. Until you can dream that from front to back and back to front, and then later on you will learn, by learning other tunes, you will see that this pattern comes back and this comes back. I could also do this and I could also do that, because you also have to free yourself from what in French they call la grille, the scheme, the chart.
Yeah.
There's no such thing like la grille.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's very amusical.
Yeah.
A guitarist as well. I mean, when you're playing with Fapy Lafertin, you would accompany in a different way than when you're playing with Birelli-Lagrène. It's not the same playing, so the accompaniment cannot be the same.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah.
If it is, then it's not a good musician, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So blah blah blah. But and again, same for whatever instrument.
Yeah.
Violin, double bass,
Yeah.
Rhythmical playing, dynamics, tempo, slight tempo changes. Be careful with pushing. Don't push is my big credo.
Yeah.
I prefer when people slow down than when they push.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which is maybe opposite to many other people. I really prefer. I mean, come on, don't slow down. That's of course it's don't slow down.
Yeah.
But if you have to choose between slowing down and pushing, well, slow down for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's better because I can when people push and I'm doing and I want to end on that and they're pushing.
Yeah.
I just kind of miss my phrase.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's also just unhappy. I mean, it's kind of there has to be a natural drive to the whole thing. And I mean, listen to Cubans, listen to New Orleans guys. They never push.
That's true.
They never push.
Yeah.
Louis Armstrong. For me, a monumental album for that is Louis Armstrong plays W.C. Handy.
All right.
All these blueses, and they do this incredible swinging at the end of St. Louis Blues and what's the other one? Down in Louisiana. Sing them low. Chante les bas.
Okay.
And in the end, they go. It's incredible how it swings. And I mean, I just think all the gypsy jazz players should practice their rhythm playing with such an album.
Yeah.
Because it would show them how much they push.
Right, okay.
And how much it kind of doesn't swing.
Yeah. So you've got interesting views on gypsy jazz, don't you?
Well, I'm afraid I have some views that are quite opposite to what many other people think or want.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say think are right or wrong because there's no right and wrong.
No.
There's something that kind of feels better than something else, and I can only say what my ideas about that are. And yes, I have opposite. Very often I have very personal opinions about it, but then I still think, listen to Django.
Yeah.
Gypsy jazz seem to have been growing away from Django, and people are more listening to very competent players, but not to Django.
Sure.
Which is weird, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it's first of all it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's also I find it very inspiring. Definitely the last 7 years of Django's career I find them incredibly inspiring. And all the poppy kind of new things, and I just can't really be interested. Also, but so Django is for me is still the reference.
Yeah,
it's the example, and for tone again, tone, timing, the rhythm playing behind it. Sometimes it's so simple and so soft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's fantastic. It doesn't need to be anything more. It can be, but let's first try and make that work a bit. Like, it's when people... I once had a violin student who came, and he was in this Brussels Jazz Conservatory place. And he was coming with a blues, with all kinds of 2-5-1 thingies.
Sure.
And I was like, come on, man. A blues is just 1, 4, 1 with 7, 4 with 7, or 4 anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the basic thing of a blues.
Sure.
1. And if you cannot do that, why bother about diminished and half diminished and what? Well, I can't understand the modern way of teaching these things.
Yeah.
You have to learn Don Ali, for example. Fantastic tune. But it's Indiana.
Yeah.
Why not first learn Indiana?
Yeah.
Learn it.
Yeah.
Learn it.
Yeah.
Just as it is. Melody is nice melody. It's good changes. It's everything what it needs to be. And when you can play that well, you can learn and understand the ingenuity of that theme.
Yeah. I think that I did study on a jazz course, and I do think that it's just I don't know. I did find that no one does care too much about anything before. We were talking about this just earlier. Anything before Charlie Parker is sort of seen as just a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, that's a pity.
But I think it's because we don't feel any affinity to the music here. We sort of just see it as like a lot of the time people just see it as like an exercise to become a very good musician, and we don't feel like it's part of our culture.
Or what, Parker, or
like just jazz? I guess because in America, I think from what I gather, like a lot of them, like American jazz courses, they'll be learning like the basics, the early jazz. They will learn about that before they learn about anything.
And they
else.
bloody well should.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it's because it's sort of part of their history.
I mean, Django Reinhardt first played New Orleans stuff. He played "I'll Be Glad When You're Dead," "You Rascal You." He played "You're Sweet, My Sweet." He played "After You've Gone," New Orleans stuff, early jazz, and then he played some swing stuff and made swings that are, in my opinion, like really like kind of dude. That's swing, and then he played bebop. Flèche d'Or is totally a bebop theme.
Yeah.
With that way of accompanying, with that way of soloing, with that kind of way of making a melody. I mean, it's jazz. It has an evolution, and I always find it a pity when people kind of skip steps and they don't know about. But okay, well, Manouche are the first. I mean, they have no idea about Louis Armstrong, about Bichet, about Coleman Hawkins, about Eddie South, about Stuff Smith, they have no clue. Yeah,
but that is actually your view on gypsy jazz, isn't it? Is that actually Django didn't play gypsy jazz? Django played swing.
Exactly. Well, he played New Orleans swing and then bebop. That's what he did. He played jazz, and he tried as well as he could to evaluate with the new styles. And God knows he might have played with Jimi Hendrix or with Jim Hall or with Glenn, with Benny Golson, or do I know? Yeah. If he would have lived on still. Yeah. Yeah. He might even have played with Coltrane.
Yeah.
Probably. And maybe not. But I mean, who am I to tell? Anyway, I mean, but yeah, he it was so much more than what today's gypsy jazz seems to become, which is it's a nice folklore. Yeah, and I love folklore. I mean, I'm playing Transylvanian music almost every day, and I mean, it's village music. I mean, I love Georges Brassens, which is very simple, so-called, because it's not simple at all. But I mean, still, it is basic, essential music. Yeah. Essential. Everything is essential. There's no extra, not really needed thing to it, and that's what I really love. And but so gypsy jazz, on the other hand, I mean, lacks a bit of the jazz element, in my opinion, very often. And then, of course, there's always exceptions, and sure.
I mean, no, I know what you're saying. I think it is like a mixture of folk and jazz, really. You know, it is like, because you have to, like, for it to be gypsy jazz, you got to play that, or gypsy jazz up and quote, close quote. You know,
it has certain codes.
Yeah, it has codes. It's like you have to play
that tempo,
that rhythm. That tempo. There's like a tempo.
These changes, these these licks.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, which feels more like folk music, I guess, than jazz.
A little bit, yeah. But it's also what I don't really want to do.
Sure, yeah.
Even if I do it sometimes, maybe. But it's not my main focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
But well, my main focus is anyway just learning and trying to use everything that I learn. That's another thing that I don't understand about, like, if I'm learning Greek music now, or I was learning Hungarian music or Transylvanian music, how could I keep my jazz playing separate from that?
Mm-hmm.
I will keep my jazz playing separate from the Transylvanian music.
Okay.
But I will not keep the jazz separate from if you see what I... So
you won't let it seep into Transylvanian music, but you won't let jazz seep into Transylvanian music.
Exactly, but I will let Transylvanian music seep into my jazz playing. Yeah. Because jazz is all about improvisation. It's all about creativity. It's about how can I use what I have. Yeah, yeah. It's about how can I tell a story. Yeah. And if I can tell this story and I can make it more interesting by playing... Why would I not do it? Yeah. But I would not play Transylvanian music and start doing... because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I think... I can imagine people wouldn't enjoy it that much.
No, of course not. No, and also, I mean, I am very respectful to what is not exactly my culture. Yeah. Even though Transylvanian musicians seem to say that I'm a very good player, and the Greeks is the same, and I'm just very lucky, and I can just be very grateful that seems to be the case, and I can only hope that they're not being polite. Yeah. So I don't want to touch those things. I don't want to change those things because it's not mine to do. But jazz is all about what can you actually add to this thing? Yeah. How can you... Yeah. Django changed jazz. Yeah. A part of jazz. Louis Armstrong changed jazz in his way. Yeah. Jelly Roll. Everyone actually does it. And it's only down to how many people really listen to it and try to learn from it, which makes then who does something that really changes it. Also, recording changed a lot. Yeah. If they wouldn't have had recordings, well, music would sound so differently today. Yeah. We have no idea. We couldn't even imagine how different it would be. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Hey, so do you have a routine? Are you someone who has a routine, or do you?
Not enough, maybe, but a little bit. If there's a period where I have the feeling that I can breathe, that I can be just at home a bit and cook some meal and have a bit free time, my routine would be morning, starting to play. Yeah. Bit of warming up, scales, not too long, but intensively, like with focus and slow. A lot of long bowing, 4-octave scales, and a lot of double stop work. I'm a huge believer of double stops. Yeah. All kinds of double stops. Yeah. Fifths. I mean, even fifths. Actually, that's a new discovery, basically. Yeah. So I just never thought about them, but actually, it's quite interesting to try and work them out as well. Yeah. Fourth definitely is very hard. Thirds is just total daily necessity. Yeah. Sixth, same thing.
Yeah, I think I've taken that from you, actually, from the lesson I had with you. That's become something that I do.
Yeah, beautiful.
It definitely helps.
It helps your violin to sound as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going into detail now, but you can make your violin play notes that you would never, that actually the instrument cannot touch. Yeah. You can. In my theory, I can make my violin play an E flat that is lower than the low E string of the bass by half a step. Yeah. And I mean, if your instrument really starts to resonate, thanks to that, you just open up a whole range to your instrument, so you help it sound. Yeah. And you cannot do it like it's. It's a long search, and you have to stick it with it for a while, and it's very nice. I really love that. Yeah. When you start feeling
yeah. And it's like a crunch, isn't it? Yeah. It's just something goes and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, but it has to be. It still has to. Like, for example. of a double bass. Now if I take that E here and I play it together with my A string, oh dear, and you would think it's wrong. No, it's not. It's actually correct.
Yeah.
It's correct with my G. It's not correct with my A. It's not the same E.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's once you get to that level, it's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's important. It is not. It is indeed not the same E.
Yeah.
The third on C is lower than the fifth of A.
Yeah.
If your violin is tuned in normal fifths.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit of my routine.
Yeah. So
Then,
that's your. You wake up. You'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the first things I'll do for a bit. Sometimes for 2 hours. Sometimes for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes not. So it's not like I'm not a very rule following person.
Okay.
But I still like to have a bit of that routine. And definitely when I have the feeling I have a concert tonight, I have to warm up. That's definitely one of the things I will do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I also check repertoire.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what was that tune that or somebody came up with this and that, or do I still remember this and I still remember that, or how was the fingering? Something. There's always a bit of that.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes when I'm at home really and I have time, I will learn a new piece and work on it. I've actually discovered some pieces that I really needed to sit down and work on for the soloing, like to learn how to improvise. Because I with some of my colleagues, I used to feel a bit awkward when they would go, "Can we do a couple of rounds to get used to the piece?" And I just think, well, you know the chords, don't you? Let's just play.
Yeah.
But then I started noticing myself that there's a couple of pieces, like for example, "How About You" is one of those that I worked a lot on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because it has some interesting changes, and it's good to check how you can actually nicely go from one spot to another.
Yeah.
And that Giant Steps is a tune that I've been working on and enjoying, even though I might never really play it. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be seen as like a bit of a exercise, can't it?
Yes, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's actually if you don't do it fast and slowly and you just check nice, you can really find nice lines and nice interferences from one chord to another. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Sure.
And I don't know. Yeah. So that's another part of the job. Repertoire, because I'm also dealing with the Hungarian stuff. So suddenly I just like, oh yeah, true. I'm also playing. It's like when I was in Kalotaszeg in Transylvania 15 years ago, and I was really immersed into that Transylvanian music. After 10 days, somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I heard that you play jazz.
Right.
Can you play?" And I was like, oh yeah, that's true actually. I do.
Yeah.
So you of course, at a certain point, you get so immersed in something, something. I have that with Greek music, or I can have that with jazz as well when I'm playing with Dave Kelby and Sebastian. We're listening to all this beautiful old stuff, recordings, and we're playing every night. So I think, oh yeah, there's this Kalotaszeg thing. What's that again? What's that?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's.
You can't give your all to everything all the time, can you? You have to sort of split between everything.
Yeah, and you have to also really take the time to get deeply involved with something.
Yeah.
You cannot just do everything every day a little bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really liked Liana's comment on one of her students, like, why would you actually work 3 hours of technique?
Okay.
If you learn repertoire, the technique is in there.
Yeah.
It is. If you, I mean, and of course, if you're a classical player, then even more. I mean, if you just learn one piece by Paganini, and there's all millions of arpeggios and scales and stuff in there.
Yeah.
Learn a Bach thing, and there's millions of double stops. So you don't have to actually sit down and do technique for hours.
Yeah.
But if you're working on a piece, because I mean, it's very important. What I want to say is that I sometimes notice people coming to my place and they would have worked for like, Stop the recording.
Oop, no. Hello.
Are you still recording?
Yeah, don't worry.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry.
How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Very well.
Cool. Well, food is ready for whenever you feel like.
Okay. We've got one point that Tcha's going to make, and then I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we're
And now
in
we've got a cat.
5-10 minutes. We'll be done.
Perfect.
Cool, man. Thanks. Let's carry on.
Yeah, what was it again?
We've got a cat in here now, though.
Hello. Baba.
Oh.
Yeah, I know her.
Now she's disappeared. That's a very nice looking cat. That's cats though, isn't it? They come into a room, and then they get locked in the room, and then they get angry that they've been locked in the room.
Yeah, but she likes this room. It's kind of a bit her room. Anyway, what was I saying?
You were saying...
Technique?
You were saying...
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes some students or even colleagues actually would come into my place and we would start playing, and I noticed that they have been working for a month on a piece.
Yeah.
And that's very well, and then they could go into the studio and record it, and that would be very well and all that. But I would go like, do you remember this Crepuscule thing that we did? And they would, oh yeah, how was that again? I cannot imagine that.
Right, okay.
If you're a musician and you want to be a musician,
yeah,
you have to be able to have all that stuff in your head.
Yeah.
So it's also your duty to check your repertoire, to check that you know the B part of this tune, still that you remember that tune as well.
Yeah.
Because tonight you're going to stand up, play, and you cannot only play that tune that you have been working on for a month.
Yeah, sure.
So it's very important that the repertoire is big.
Yeah. Because
that's also how you learn how to use ornaments, chord changes. It's not only by learning a tune and then try to... No, it's by learning a tune and you learn another one and another one and another one. And then suddenly you realize, this is actually the same like that and that. And actually this tune is a bit like this one, but if I'm... And that's why Liana also said to her student, don't spend 4 hours on technique.
Yeah.
Spend these 4 hours on learning repertoire because you'll need it. Because they will ask you to play this and that, and you cannot then say, "Oh, give me 3 months to learn this piece."
Yeah, sure.
So that's there you are.
That cat wants to get out of the room. You got it. Fickle. I agree with you there. The thing is though with jazz, if you're spending most of your time trying to play like jazz, then the repertoire isn't going to help you with your technique. That's the only, unless you're learning bop heads and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only thing that maybe
that's true, and that's also why I also spend every day a certain amount of time with technique.
Yeah.
And definitely technique that I will never really even use in jazz.
Sure.
Like 5 octave scales. Is it 5 or is it 4? What is it? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I mean, I've heard you play probably 5 octaves.
No, 4.
I've heard you play 4 octaves in a solo for sure.
Wow, no. 3, yes. 3, yes, definitely. But I would say start with just first position. Learn everything that you can in first position.
Yeah.
And learn all the accompaniments on G and D string.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense to kind of do that on A and E.
Yeah.
That's not accompanying.
Yeah.
That can be coloring, and it's also good if you can do that.
Yeah.
At first you want to just learn one thing, and then you will do another and another later. So
Mm-hmm. Should we wrap it up?
Well, I hope you have things that you like.
Totally.
Nice one.
Nice one. Thanks,
beautiful.
Tcha.
No worries.
Great.
Great pleasure.
Pleasure. You've been listening to the Jazz Violin Podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. You were listening to Tcha Limberger and me, Matt Holborn. We are on Podbean, the podcast app Podbean, and you can find us at jazzviolin.podbean.com. You can find links to that on www.mattholborn.com. We're going to be back next month with another guest yet to be announced. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please come again.